If we're going to be the kinds of coaches that use a constraints-informed approach in our work, we need to know what are constraints. Generally, we think of constraints as something negative, but under Newell's theory of constraints, or the ecological dynamics model, constraints can be any factor that either limits or helps shape a movement. And under this, we consider the individual constraints, the task constraints, and we'll mostly be talking about swimming today, and the environmental constraints, and that does go beyond water. We'll take a look at that. When we're thinking about working with a person who is swimming through water, we're looking at the intersection of that individual task and environment. And we want to understand what each one of these factors, individual task and environment, has underneath it that we can work with. So if we look at the individual and the individual constraints, they're generally grouped under either structure or function. Structure are things about the body that are relatively permanent, but malleable. So things that can be changed, but take a little while to change. They're stable. The functions include everything from past experiences to someone's own fears and anxieties around swimming or open water swimming, or their feelings of safety. And that safety can be their physical safety, or it can also be their psychological safety, their willingness to try to experiment with new movements, new motions, new actions in front of you or in front of whatever environment they usually practice under. The task constraints really dive us into things like energy use and relative timings and motions and forces. And let's look at each one of these. Energy cost comes down to effort over time, right? What percentage of someone's capacity is being used to move forward? How much is necessary to overcome friction? And how much of the work that they do actually goes to forward movement, their efficiency? The timing of things is there's a sequence to swimming, right? Some things move fast, some things move slow. There's a fast to slow action. It's not a single time element that we need to consider. We need to consider each individual part of that stroke's timing and how they relate to each other. Motions are what we observe for the movements, and they come with different qualities, different degrees, different directions, include different joints. And we want to look at how those things sequence together and how well they sequence together. Forces are what either move us forward individually, move our limbs, move our legs, move our body, or move us through the water, overcoming all of the pieces that are necessary to move forward through water. And then there are the rules, and we need to include those in our consideration when we give instructions about movements or experiences of moving forward through water in different conditions. And how equipment changes things. We have a world of different equipment available to us, and we can use each different piece of equipment to offer different feedback under different conditions for different individuals, depending on what it is we're trying to allow them to experience, what kinds of feedback we want them to get. And that opens up a world of opportunities for changing constraints or using different constraints under different conditions with different people so that they can experience different things that let them feel what's right and not just have us telling them what's wrong. And finally, the environment goes beyond water, although water is the environment we're probably first and foremost concerned with. But it also has to do with time, location, others, and if there are very different conditions if they're cooperative versus competitive, and that can impact how somebody's able to learn a movement or how somebody's able to produce a movement. And then the culture they're under. when we start to really think about these different constraints available to us and how they intersect, we become better coaches because we have more information available to us in a really systematic and structured way that we can choose from to act on with athletes in front of us. I'm going to stop here and we'll move on in a different video.